Okay. Okay. All right, lovely. So we've got a quorum here. All we need is a couple of people and we're good to go. All right. So why don't we start with our opening prayers? So everybody have your opening prayer book, please. So we'll begin with the altruistic motivation. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will be able to establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Dagla dangwa je pe dra no pa je pe ge. Darpa dang tam she ken pe ba du jo pa je pa tam she ki so je pe. Manam ka dam yam pe sem chen tam she de wa dang dem. Dug now dang drel nor du la na me pa yang dag pa zog pe shang ju brin po she to pa ja. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Peshe du sang ma ge gi ba du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Ma she ba du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Du de ring ne song te ni ma sang ta sam gi ba du. Lunagi samge wa lako. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Transcend sawa dangur pa je pe pal dan lama dampa namla gabsu chio. Yedam kil gorgi la sok namla kapsu chio. Sangye chom den de nam la kapsu chio. Dampe cho nam la kapsu chio. Wagpe ge dun nam la kapsu chio. Pawo kadro cho kyong song me song yeshe gi cheng dang. Dempa nam la kapsu chio. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Shangju Ningpo Chiki Bar Sangye Namla Kapsuchi Chodang Shangshub Sampai So Klang Deshin Kapsuchi Jita Nongi Deshegi Shangshub Tugni Ke Padang Shangshub Sampe La Pala De Dagrim Shen E Pata De Shen Jola Pandandu Shangshub Samni Ke Gishin De Shen Duni La Pala Rimpa Shindu La Pa Jio. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye Chodang Soki Chonamla Shangshu Bardu Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Jin Soki Pe Sonamgi Drola Penshir Sangye Jupasho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pesem centam she dewadang dewe gurdang dempar jorchi. Dog now dang da now gi gu dang drawa jorchi. Dog now me pe de wa dang mi drawa jorchi. Me ring chak dang ni dang drawe dang nam la ne pa jorchi. Okay, thank you all very much. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the opening prayers or anything that we talked about last week or weeks before? Okay.
I love the the purification practice you did last week.
Very good.
Really good. I know Hawaii. It made a lot of sense. It wasn't hard. It was really easy. I don't know why. The other ones are harder.
Yes. Did you practice it by yourself or when we practiced it together last Monday?
Together.
I see.
Together. I've done it before in another version or some, but this I don't know why. Maybe it was me. The state of mind was more clear, I guess.
Well, very good. Yes, I'm glad you enjoyed that. That was given to us by Kenshin Rinpoche, the founder of TMC, the Tibet Meditation Center, and the translator for many of the sadhana texts that we use, and the Jewel Ornamental Liberation when he was a Kempo before he became Kenshin. So yeah, that practice is a great gift that he gave to us, and I'm sure it comes from others that he learned from. So yeah, so do that. That practice is a great practice to do sometimes when you're stuck. When you're not feeling quite well, or where you need a break from what you've been doing, and to do that practice, because it is a simple practice. And it really helps to purify your body, speech, and mind. And then you're actively helping other beings to purify their body, speech, and mind.
Which practice is this again, Lance?
This is the Om Ahom purification practice. It's in our books here. It's on page 23.
Just you're talking about just the 3-syllable mantra, or
yeah, Om Ahom.
Oh, I do a mile around of that or two every day.
Well, that's really good. That's really good. Well, here's a practice that goes along with it. If you didn't recognize that.
Okay.
There's a practice that goes with that. So it really helps to stabilize the meaning.
Okay.
So we've done it before in other Buddhism 101 sessions, so maybe you practiced it, but it was recorded and you can see it online on YouTube from last week. And the melody is a great melody. And if anybody wants the melody, I can send that to you. I've got that from the Lama, Kenshin Rinpoche, reciting Om Ahom in the melody. So I can send that to you so you can have it in your phone or whatever.
Yes, the melody was really something. Yes.
Okay.
I think I have found it online in other places too, but I mean, it's generally the same melody for all people who practice it, right?
That I can't swear to. I don't know.
Okay. Before you continue, Lance, is there something you brought up, recommended in a class? It's been some time, which I finally got around to reading, and I really would recommend it to everyone. You were really enthusiastic about it, a book by Peter Russell called The White Hole in Time.
Oh, yeah.
It's a marvelous book. I'm just completing it. I'll probably reread it. It brings to mind Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now and things of that genre, but he wrote it, I guess, in the early 90s. And it's just a marvelous piece of work. You just stop reading and start thinking. I've actually started meditating sometimes, and I just stop it at the end of the page. So I will say it's not available in the library because I checked, and I had to get it from thrift books because of its age, which I was able to get for a very modest price. But it's well worth it, and I want to thank you for recommending that.
Oh, you're welcome.
There's
a sequel to it called The Greater Hole in Time.
Well, now you've really done it to him. How many holes am I going to fall through?
Writing that down.
There's always one more.
You got to be kidding me. You're serious.
I am. And
I'm sure I'll have to go back to thrift books to get that because the library doesn't seem to have it.
It wasn't as popular as The White Hole in Time, but
it wasn't.
But nevertheless, Peter Russell was the man. He traveled around with, I'm not going to pronounce his name properly, the Prabhupada, who back in the day was traveling around with the Beatles, went to see him in India, and then he came to America and around the world, and he was teaching transcendental meditation.
I remember that person.
TM,
Yeah.
Transcendental Meditation. So Peter Russell wrote the book called TM, which gives detail on transcendental meditation. That was one of the early practices that I did many years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just a brilliant man. Early in the book, he mentioned another book that was written about the same time that I've mentioned to you before, Future Shock by Alvin Toffler.
Okay.
And they view time along the same lines. I mean, it's not exactly the same, as a little bit different perspective, but it's just well worth the time for those who can make the time to read it. And like I said, I got it from thrift books, and it was very reasonable. You won't find it anywhere else because of its age. It's just not. It's out of publication generally. So
Very good. Thank you. Yes, that's a good recommendation. Anybody else have anything you want to bring up? Any questions? Okay, so what we've been trying to do in this round of Buddhism 101 is not only give you some academics on the what of what Buddhism Dharma is, Buddha Dharma is, but also the why, to understand why we're doing these things, why we're talking about these things, but also the how to practice these things. So we've been intermingling the meditation along with this. So the first one was the watching the breath meditation. So you might remember that. And then the last time we did was the Om Ahong purification meditation. So these are stepping stones, that we can utilize in our practices. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit more now about a practice that elucidates visualization of the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. Why it is that we are paying attention to the Dharma. Why is it we want to learn this? And then with each one of these four thoughts, there is a period of contemplation where we recite the short prayer, and then we contemplate the meaning of it. And that meaning is very fluid. And by that, I mean that even the most experienced practitioner who is still having things when they go out into the world and do things, when they first sit down to do meditation, many times there's something going on in their minds. They're thinking about, they're processing or whatever. So this four thoughts to the mind that turns the mind to the Dharma is a way of processing those thoughts going on, to get them kind of in order. If we're sitting down a little scrambled, it helps us to get things stabilized and in order with them. So you'll see how this develops. So those of you who have done Buddhism 101 with us before know that we talk about this every cycle. So please be patient with us and enjoy this. We recite this every day. Serious practitioners recite this prayer every day and do the contemplation every day, all the way up to the Dalai Lama, I am told. So it is a very profound practice that is full of wisdom, and the how to be able to practice, and the why as why we do the practice and what it is that we practice. Okay. So I hope you've got your notes. You can take some notes today. I'm going to use a screen share to be able to help everybody to focus on this. If you have questions, just turn on your microphones and speak right up, because I may not have the group view on the screen while I'm doing the screen share. So if you have a question, don't hesitate to speak right up. Okay, if we're ready, I'm going to begin. So here is, let me move this out of the way. So this is the cover page that we have for this particular text. So this is called The Four Thoughts to Turn the Mind to the Dharma. This is the preliminary foundation awakenings, the four common preliminaries. So these four common preliminaries are common to all the different schools of Buddhism, all the different practices of Buddhism, whether it comes from India or it comes from Tibet or it comes from Japan or Korea or wherever. This four thoughts that turn the mind are something that is practiced by all these groups, the four common preliminaries, and they touch on the very basics of our practice. So here in the center of this picture right here is a Dharma wheel. This is called the Dharma chakra wheel, and it's got 8 spokes. And this represents the eightfold path that is the fourth of the Four Noble Truths. So right there, I just gave you a 4, an 8, and a 4. So getting to be familiar with these things is very helpful. So this eightfold path, this Dharma chakra, is demonstrating to us that there is this system in place that we are learning to help us to stabilize our wisdom mind, our Dharma mind, our mind of nirvana, to be able to understand the mind of samsara and see that the two are two sides of the same hand. So around this are wisdom jewels. And these wisdom jewels are contained within these four common preliminaries, and they lead us to discover many other wisdom jewels within ourselves, that we are the embodiment of these wisdom jewels. And as we are able to open up our heart center, these wisdom jewels come spilling out into our midst, into our minds, and so on. So these represent those wisdom jewels. And these books here on the side, these are books that are located on each side, and which are the scriptures, which are showing us that there is this whole system in place that has been written down that we can refer to and be able to open up and to be able to help us to guide ourselves through our understanding of the Dharma. So the next page is this first one here. This is the precious human life. So precious human life. Let me collapse this here. Okay. So the first of these is precious human life. The second one is impermanence. The third one is, the second one's impermanence. The one after that is called the suffering of samsara. And the last one, the fourth one, is called karma, cause and result. So the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma is number one, precious human life. The second one is impermanence. The next one is the suffering of samsara. And the next one is karma, cause and result. So now we're going to investigate these a little bit further. So this prayer, you can recite this with me out loud. This is 2 parts, actually. The first part is above this line, the second part below. The freedoms and advantages so extremely difficult to obtain accomplish the purpose of human life. If one does not achieve benefit from this now, how could this opportunity come again? Oh, this kind of leisure and endowment is supremely difficult to obtain. When one obtains the body, which is easily lost, do not waste it meaninglessly, but rather use it to attain ultimate liberation, joyous result. And then we'll contemplate. But first, we need to understand some of the meaning behind this. So the first one is one prayer. The second one is the second prayer. It's an alternative translation of the prayer. So sometimes you might want to recite one or the other. Sometimes you want to recite both all together. So the freedoms and advantages, so extremely difficult to obtain. What is it to be a human being becomes the fundamental question. So we've talked about before that being a human being, that we have these 6 human realms: the Deva realm, which was the God realm, the demigod realm, the realm of the Titans. There's the animal realm. There's the hungry ghost realm. And then there are the hell being realms. And then the human realm that all this is all part of, is all active in. So this is the psychophysical drama of being a human being. So the psychophysical drama is very time consuming. Everything that we're doing is being processed as a human being and so on, and blocks us from recognizing our spirituality. So this precious human life is indicating to us that there is this spiritual aspect that we have in our lives, and we need to be able to work to be able to get that. It's difficult to obtain. To accomplish now this purpose of human life. What is the purpose of human life? Is it to raise a family? Is it to have a particular job or a series of particular jobs? Is it to go through school and then start working and then grow old and play golf every day, or play cards every day, or do the things that some people do? And some people have no sense of their spirituality, or maybe they just check in with their spirituality once a week, on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Friday or something like that. They attend some kind of ceremony or some kind of meditation that they engage in, but the rest of the time, they're really not paying attention to their spirituality. So here we're trying to accomplish a purpose of our human life, which has a very strong spiritual component to it. So it says now, if one does not achieve benefit from this now, well, how could this opportunity come again? So if we only have this one life, what is the purpose of this life? Can we expect that we're going to have another life? And what would that be like? Or if we subscribe to the idea that we have many lives and that we have been born many times and that we have died many times, that what's the opportunity that we're going to have a precious human life again? But maybe we'll be born as a hungry ghost. Maybe we'll be born as an animal. Maybe we'll be born as a hell being, or as a demigod, or as a god. And when I say that, I don't mean that exclusively we would be one of those beings, but we might be predominantly that kind of being. To be a human being, to be a precious human being, means that we recognize the 6 realms of being a human being, but we are able to control those, and we're able to model those for the benefit of all sentient beings. So this next line here says, this kind of leisure and endowment is supremely difficult to obtain. This is another way of saying the freedoms and advantages, the leisures and endowments, which are difficult to obtain. When one obtains a body, which is easily lost, do not waste it meaninglessly, but rather use it to attain ultimate liberation, joyous result. So we have this body. Hopefully we have this body for a very good long time, a healthy long time. We live to be a ripe old age where we have many good experiences and we have virtue and so on. We do not waste our opportunities meaninglessly, that we do good things. Our life is not taken away from us by an accident or by illness, by something that we did not plan on, expect, or want to have happen. Maybe not by imprisonment or something like that, by some kind of a government or something like that. But we use this life to attain our ultimate liberation, joyous result. Our ultimate liberation, joyous result, that we may see this life as an opportunity to be able to recognize our true nature, to recognize our true nature as being spiritual and in combination with our physical body and our intellectual body, that we become a complete human being. So to be able to give us a little bit more understanding of this section here, this human section, we spend more time on in this discussion tonight than we do with the others, because this one here really lays the foundation for many things that we will come to understand in our Dharma career here. So the 8 leisures, this means to be free from the 8 unfavorable conditions. The 8 unfavorable conditions of being a human being. So what are these? These are enumerated here. So 1, that we're not reborn in the hell realms, where there is constant suffering, no opportunity to practice the Dharma, an improper vessel. The beings in the hell realms are completely locked in with suffering, that they are constantly dying a very violent, unhappy, terrible death, only to be revived and reborn again to go through that death over and over and over again. That cycle going through many, many, what we might consider to be lifetimes. And we may know beings like that who are caught in the hell realms. Remember, this is the psychophysical drama of human beings. So this means that there are people who are alive right now who are in war zones, who don't know whether they are going to make it through the day. They don't know if a bomb is going to be dropped on them. They don't know if they're going to step on some kind of a landmine or some kind of a sniper is going to take their lives. Or maybe that someone is living in a zone, an area of the world where there's great famine, and they don't know whether they're going to starve to death today, and that they're very weak and they haven't been able to get the nutrition that they need. There are many people who are living like that today. And these beings are like in a hell. If you ask them, what is your life like? And they're very likely to tell you, it's like hell. And then what are beings who are in a, excuse me a second, a war zone, hungry, and some are disease. Some people are living in areas where they have very, very poor medical attention, and cholera is around, polio is around, COVID is around, unchecked. People haven't had the benefit of modern science in many of these places, and they don't know whether they're going to be able to last the day because their body is just wasting away from the disease. So these people too are thinking that their life is like a hell. So these people are an improper vessel. They are not able to recognize their spirituality because they're so consumed with either their disease, the war that is going on around them, or the disease, or the
Famine.
what was that?
Famines.
What was that?
Famine.
Famine. Yes, thank you. Okay. So yes, from the famine. Thank you. So now the second, so we're not born in that. We're very fortunate where we live. So we're not reborn in a hungry ghost realm where we're tortured by mental burning, no opportunity to practice the Dharma, where we would be an improper vessel. The hungry ghosts are those beings who are never satiated. They're insatiable. They are pictured as being very big and round and fat, and have very short legs and very short arms and little hands and a very long neck and a small mouth. and they can never mobilize themselves to get to enough food or drink. They can never swallow and eat enough food or drink to satisfy their big rotund bodies. But this represents their greediness. This represents that they have had things to be able to enrich their lives, but they were greedy and they did not share it with other beings. So they wind up in this kind of realm of being like a hungry ghost. So maybe you yourself have felt that about yourself, or you know other beings who are like that, who are just insatiable. They're miserable, and they're never happy with themselves or with other people because of their being caught up in this unfavorable condition. So I think we are free from that. The next one be rebirth from the animal realm, mostly overpowered by stupidity, no opportunity to practice the Dharma, an improper vessel. So in the animal realm, animals are consumed with just very basic things: where they can sleep for the night, what they can eat for the day. They have to escape being eaten, that there's another animal that is coming after them who is looking at them as their next meal. And so plus injury, if they get into fights, sometimes they're fighting over mates. You know, the males are fighting the other males, and the females are fighting over their broods, over their litters and so on, and trying to defend their families and so on, so they can suffer that kind of injury and so on. And these beings with human beings can come along and enslave these beings and use them as beasts of burden to be able to plow fields and do things like that. So we're not born in the animal realm, although there may be times when we think it feels like we're living an animalistic kind of a life. All we're thinking about is just our survival. All we're thinking about is procreation. All we're thinking about is eating our next meal. All we're thinking about is fear of who's going to attack us. So, so beings wind up in the animal realm out of ignorance. So the next one would be the fourth rebirth among barbarians, where there is difficulty in meeting spiritual beings who believe their negativity is positive behavior. So the barbarians, I think we used to, maybe many of us would think of barbarians, coming from many, many, many hundreds of years ago, when, marauding beings were coming from one nation to another and coming across Asia into Europe and dominating and pillaging and raping and killing and so on, all the people there, the barbarians that were coming in. But we've seen barbaric behavior in the not too distant past. We've seen that. We've seen what happened in the Middle East, and the way that the barbarians were coming and were making women second-class citizens, and by using them for their own pleasure objects and so on, and they were very proud of their barbaric behavior. They were chopping off the heads of beings and making that available, those videos, to many people and so on. They were very pleased with that. They thought that they were doing very good spiritual beings themselves. They thought that this was pleasing their God. So we're not born like that. We're not born in these four groups like that. The fifth one is to be born as a long life God, to abide in the non-conceptual state, no mental activity, no opportunity to practice Dharma. That these gods, these devas, I'm not talking about a supreme being God. I'm talking about human gods, people who think that they are God-like and that they are beyond human suffering. And they are just taken up with their pleasures. They are adored by their followers, and they have no compassion for other beings. They may have great wisdom, but they have no they have no aspiration to want to help other beings. They don't recognize other beings suffering, and they're not going to use their wisdom for the benefit of other beings. They abide in a non-conceptual state, meaning that they're not aware of where it is that they are. So they're very prideful, and these long life gods last for a very long time. So we may know civilizations that have had many gods, pantheons of gods like that, but we maybe do not have that. So that the sixth one is rebirth among people that hold wrong views, that do not understand karma, that people that do not appreciate the idea that of what we call the golden rule. You know, what we do is going to come back onto us. If we do good deeds will happen. If we do bad deeds will come to us. And that we treat each other as we want others to treat us. Many people have a very selfish, egotistical attitude towards what they do in society. They want to take everything they can for other people, from other people, for their own aggrandizement, for the perpetrators of wrong view, for their benefit. They don't have any kind of an appreciation of karma. Karma being the action of doing good deeds and having good deeds come back to you, or the appreciation for bad karma of doing bad things and recognizing that bad things come to you. They don't recognize that if you're reborn in the hell realms as a result of anger and hatred, to be reborn in the hungry ghost realm as the result of greed, in the animal realm as because of ignorance, or barbarians out of a combination of those things, and long life God out of pridefulness. So we're not born among people that hold these wrong views, that we have appreciation, that we live in a society and we have to help each other. We have to help everyone like brothers and sisters. Number 7 says that we are not reborn in a land that is absent of a Buddha, a great teacher, an awakened one. That there has been a Buddha in this lifetime, or rather has had a lifetime, and who has brought the teachings to us. And although the Buddha who was born 2,600 years ago may not be here, but the Buddha lives on through many Buddhas that have succeeded him that are around us right now. And that these Buddhas are teachers. One of the definitions of the word Buddha is teacher. The other definition is the awakened one. So teaching the method to attain awakening. So we have that. So we recognize that. And then the 8th one is reborn as a stupid person who cannot understand the differences between virtue and non-virtue. So what I mean is that there are human beings who are born who do not have the mental capacity to understand the difference between good and non-virtue, and don't understand, relationships properly and so on. And they may be they may have sense problems. They may not be able to see very well. They may not be able to hear very well. But those not having those senses is not the final criteria for these beings. It's just that they do not have the mental capacity, the intelligence to be able to process that which is happening around us and so on. So these 8 leisures, we are free from those 8 leisures. We are human beings who have great benefits, who have these great abilities to be able to do this. We have the time. We associate leisures with time, that these other beings their time is taken up with being these creatures that we were just talking about. So those are the 8 leisures. And this is something that you ought to write down, something that you think about. This is part of the contemplation, to go through this process of understanding this. This is what we appreciate who we are as a precious human being. What makes us a precious human being from an ordinary human being? An ordinary human being may not have these leisures, would not have these leisures, or maybe they wouldn't have them all. So we're very fortunate. So to understand that a little bit further, let me go to the next part here, where is the 10 endowments, the enrichments of being a human being. So these endowments are broken down into 5 external and 5 internal. So the 5 of the external to us, external to our bodies and so on, that we're born where the Buddha has arrived in the world. So when we're born into this world, the teachings are around us and so on. The Buddha has taught the precious Dharma. So the Dharma teachings are around us. If we want to find them, we can. The Dharma continues to be taught. So it is a thriving thing that is external to us. We need to go outside to be able to find these teachings. We may need to go find teachers and find books and so on, and places to learn this. It's not inherent within us, but it's out there. And that there is a Sangha to maintain the teachings. The Sangha is the community of people, of other human beings who have already taken up to some degree the Buddha Dharma teachings and is practicing that and is making the teachings available to beginners who are coming in the midst of the Sangha. And that 5, that there is love and kind support to continue the Dharma practice. So there are books, there are practices, there are teachers, there are places that you can go and so on like that to support all this. So this is all outside. This is a great enrichment of human beings. Then the internal enrichments are that first, we're born as a human being, that we're not born as an animal. We're not born as a hungry ghost or an insect or some other creature that has no ability to be able to process all this intelligent information. That we're born in an area where there are Dharma teachings. There are places in the world where they've never heard of the Dharma teachings. And whether or not they have some kind of spiritual teachings or not, they may very well, but to be able to have the detail, to have the elucidation of what the Dharma is and the relationship with cause and effect, with karma, and to be able to bring these things together in a connected system, to be able to see how our life is connected with the things that we do and the society in which we are with other people. And then number 8 is that we are born with the full faculties of the senses, that we have our sense of sight, our sense of hearing, our sense of smell, our sense of taste, and our sense of touch. Now, some of us, through many different circumstances, may not have our sight, may not have hearing, may not have the sense of touch fully developed and so on. But we can compensate from that because we have other intelligence, other senses to help us to compensate for that. So just because we're born blind, just because we're born deaf or mute, does not necessarily mean that we can't have these things. Remember, many of these teachings were devised 2,600 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, or 500 years ago. So many of the systems that we have in place in our 21st century human lives didn't exist when these things were taught. So being born blind or being born without your hearing or something was a very strong handicap that we've learned to be able to overcome with many beings and so on. So the next of the internal is not having committed the 5 heinous crimes. The 5 heinous crimes are the evil deeds of killing a father, killing your father, killing your mother, killing an arhat. An arhat is a great spiritual person who is on the path to becoming a Buddha, an awakened one, not causing injury to the Buddha. And that means a Buddha themselves, if you if you come to recognize that another being is a Buddha and to not bring harm to them, but it also means the facilities, to not harm the buildings, to not harm the statues or the other paintings and iconography that's in there, to not harm the books and the teachings and so on that are in there, all that are all part of what we would call the Buddha, the awakened one. So not to cause any injury to that. And the fifth one is not to cause a schism in the Sangha. So a schism is a fracture, splintering, dividing the Sangha. The Sangha is the community of people. And sometimes it can be weak for one reason or another, and not to take advantage of that and to come in and maybe say, oh, well, you know, so-and-so does this, that, and the other thing, and we shouldn't follow them anymore. We should go off and follow me or follow someone else or something like that, to cause a schism in the Sangha, or that we don't like this particular teacher, that kind of thing. That the teachings are flawed. Maybe we don't understand the meaning of the teachings, but we're using our ignorance to be able to drive a wedge in other people who are trying to understand it themselves, or who have come to some understanding and are placed in doubt because of the schism that we may be creating for them. And then the last of these internal is having devotion to the Dharma, this enrichment of having devotion to the Dharma. The Dharma is the teaching of the Buddha, the articulation of the experience of enlightenment, of liberation, of the joyous result of being a human being. So this Dharma is this intellectual process that we're going through that has its root in our heart center, and having a devotion to that. And as we awaken that devotion, as we recognize that devotion, and we cultivate that devotion, and to stabilize that, and to feed that, is one of the greatest enrichments that we have, because that will see us through many other things that may begin to fall apart in our world. We may be going through difficulty in our personal relationships, in our families, in our businesses, things like that. Government things may be happening, war may come, disease may come, famine may come. But if we have a devotion to the Dharma can help us to maintain joy through all that discomfort and suffering and so on. So those are the 8 leisures and the 10 endowments. This is what it is to be a precious human being. So getting familiar with this, I can put this in the chat, or I think what I'll do better would be I will take this and make it in our WhatsApp. I will send to everybody this document that you can print this, or you can keep it into your files, whatever, so you can refer back to it. But as I said before, it's very important to be able to recognize that we have a precious human life, and to be able to develop that precious human life as much as we possibly can. So now at this point, I'm going to restart this. So now we come here. So we would recite this as part of our daily practice. And then we would come and we would contemplate the meaning of this. So at this point now, let's practice that. Let's practice that contemplation. So I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes. It's not a long time, but it gives you a fixed time so that you can get used to the discipline of doing something like this, and contemplate that you have a precious human life. You are not born in these unpleasant places where there is death constantly happening, injury, disease, etc. That we're very fortunate where we live, very fortunate to have these teachings, etc. So I'm going to put this up and you can contemplate this now, please. Okay. So one of the things that we're trying to do is to develop discipline, to carve out the time each day to be able to do these contemplations, these practices, recite these prayers, use these guides, these opening prayers that we do, use this 4 thoughts to turn the mind to the Dharma, and have to give yourself the time to do that. So that's why we're demonstrating this for you, to give you a way to see that this is doable, to give you permission to do this. Okay. So now the next of the 4 thoughts is impermanence. So we come to the Dharma trying to understand who we are. So precious human life. Now, sometimes we come to the Dharma, we come to spirituality in times when someone has passed away or gotten sick, or it's threatening that it's coming. And you say, oh my goodness, what does life mean? It seems that life doesn't last forever. I realize that now. What am I going to do? How do I understand this? How do I process this? So impermanence, the teaching on impermanence, is the way in which we process this. So this is the second thought that turns the mind to the Dharma. Why are we doing this? Because of impermanence. We want to understand impermanence. So impermanence now has 2 slides here. So this first one says ka, means like attention. Ka, no matter what has been done, nothing benefits at the time of death. Worldly activities, yes, they are lies. Ka, the 8 worldly dharmas are like a painted rainbow. Think you can put your trust in them? In the certainty of death, and knowing that nothing remains long, quickly accomplish liberation. Impermanence makes departure certain, like the shadow of the setting sun. Abandoning laziness and indifference, blaze like fire in fierce diligence. This life is impermanent, like clouds in the autumn sky. Birth and death migrators are the same as actors in a play or a dance. The life of beings is like lightning in the sky, like water falling from a steep mountain cliff. It departs quickly, quickly. The second prayer is short. The nature of all phenomena is impermanence. Death is a certainty to all who are born. Death can descend anytime like a drop of morning dew on a blade of grass. Quick, it is time to make effort for the essence of the Dharma. Okay, so now we go back to this part here and we talk about this. So no matter what has been done, nothing benefits at the time of death. So all our life, all the things that we do, when it comes time for our death, what is going to help us when we die? Is our bank account going to help us when we die? Is our house going to help us when we die? Is our car, is the notoriety that we may have, is that going to help us? What's going to help us when we come to die? Well, the answer is nothing. That we were born naked and we literally die naked. So it says worldly activities. Yes, they are lies. So what are the worldly activities? It says the 8 worldly dharmas are like a painted rainbow. Think you can put your trust in them? So all these things that we think about all the time, that we think are going to bring us happiness and satisfaction in our life and so on, are just these 8 worldly dharmas. These dharmas mean a pathway, but dharma with a capital D means the Buddha Dharma. Dharma with a lowercase d just means any pathway, a pathway to be a carpenter, a pathway to be a householder, a pathway to whatever particular job you have, etc. All these different dharmas. So what are these dharmas? These dharmas are the worldly activities. So the first is gain and loss. Gain and loss. How much time do we spend thinking about gain and loss? How much time do we think about the money that we might have in the bank, or the money that we're trying to save to be able to buy the car that we've been wanting for so long, or to be able to buy the house that we want to be able to live in? How much time do we think about what it is that we've gained and how much we have to protect that? How important it is to us, and we want to be able to know that it's going to be there when we need it. So how much time do we think about what's going to happen if we lose that whatever it is that we've gained? Maybe it's the notoriety. It's, in our business or in school or whatever, we've come to be known as being a certain kind of person or something, and we've gained this notoriety and we thrive on this notoriety. We feel really good. But if I leave that place, if I leave that job, I'm going to lose all that notoriety. I got to go to another place to work, and I got to start all over again, and I got to build up my notoriety. So we're thinking about gain and loss. We're thinking about in terms of material, money and things, but we're also thinking about it in terms of who we are, our egocentric properties, the things that make us feel good and so on. Maybe we're thinking about it in our families and things like that. So the gain and loss, all those things that we've gained, all the things that we have the potential to lose, do they help us at the time of death? The next 8 worldly dharmas are pleasure and pain. What is it that gives us pleasure? What are we looking for to give us pleasure? Is it a love relationship? Is it our families? Is it our physical possessions? Is it our place in the workforce that give us pleasure? Do we take real pleasure? Do we really enjoy this? When we're young and we new in love and we're feeling great, our bodies are healthy and vibrant and so on, and we're thinking of all the pleasures that we have, being with our loved one and so on. But then when we get old, those pleasures don't come to us so easy, because our body gets old, our body changes and so on. So that which was pleasurable for us now becomes pain for us, now becomes difficulty for us. When we're young, we love to go running, we love to go out exercising, we love to go out in the woods and go hiking and do all those things. But now when we get older, it becomes much more difficult for us. It becomes a source of pain for us, or it can be a source of pain for us. Our relationships, we may be in love with someone and it brings us great pleasure, but then we see that person talking to somebody else, and we have a weak self sense of well-being, and our jealousy rises up. So now that which brings us pleasure is now bringing us pain, because now I've got this jealousy that I'm dealing with all the time, because I know our relationship is not working out real good, and I'm thinking that my spouse is always going out and talking about me or developing another relationship or something. So the things that we had pleasure are bringing us pain. When we raise a family, when we finish school and we get our jobs and we have a house and we start raising a family and everything, and then we have all these expectations. We're trying to help our children to do the best thing, but then our children decide that they're not going to use their college education. They're going to go off and do something else, or they're going to they're going to go off with different groups of people that you don't approve of or something. So you used to take such wonderful pleasure with your family, with your children, but now they're bringing you such pain. They're going through divorce themselves. Things are happening. Maybe they're passing away. Things happen. That which brought us great pleasure is now bringing us pain. So how much time do we think about on a daily basis pleasure and pain? So it's an interesting question, and one that we should write down and think about. Recognize how much time we're thinking about gain and loss, pleasure and pain. So now another pair of these 8 worldly dharmas is praise and blame. How much time do we think about praise? How much time do we think about, oh, I've got this job and I'm very successful at it, and it's a business job, and I just brought in I'm going to close this for a moment, and it's a business job, and I just brought in this new client who is going to bring in $1 million worth of business in a very short period of time. And boy, everybody's so excited. The boss is giving me a new parking place, and I'm going to be able to get a raise, and everybody's going to be able to keep their jobs. We're going to be able to get move into a new office and everything, and all because I brought in this job, and I'm such a wonderful person. They're giving me all this praise and everything. But then the next day, we get a phone call, and now the client, who's representative of $5 million, decides to leave our firm and is going someplace else because I didn't give them enough attention while I was developing this other client for $1 million. So now this $5 million client goes, we got to lay all these people off. We're not going to be able to move. We're not going to be able to get the raise. And I'm being called a bum because I lost this account. I'm getting the blame for the company going down the tubes. So praise on one hand and blame on the other hand. So how much of a motivation is that in our lives? Maybe we do it in school. Maybe in school we're thinking about how I'm class valedictorian, or I'm class president, or something like that, or I'm an honor student or something like that. But then they find out that while I was in school, I was plagiarizing other people's papers and stealing and putting votes in the ballot box to vote me as president and so on. And now they're blaming me for being corrupt. So just a short time ago, I was getting all this praise. Now I'm getting all this blame for bringing shame upon the school that I'm in, or the family I'm in, or something like that. Same thing in marriage relationships. It can be marriage relationships. You're getting all kinds of praise. Oh, you married such a wonderful person. You're going to have such a wonderful family and everything. But then after some period of time, there's divorce, and now you're bringing shame onto our family. We've never had divorce in our family. This is terrible. How can you do this? And so on. So things can turn very, very quickly and very profoundly in our lives. So how much time will we spend thinking about praise and blame? It may not be every single day that we do that. It may not be every single day, every single moment that we do that. For the other things, gain and loss, pleasure and pain. But it is significant. And what will we be doing if we weren't thinking about those things? How much more leisure time would we have? So now the last pair of the 8 worldly concerns, or the 8 worldly dharmas, is fame and disgrace. How much time do we think about fame and disgrace? Whether it's our fame, oh wow, I'm a big star, people really like me, and I walk into a restaurant and they usher me to a beautiful table, and somebody comes over and buys me drinks, and maybe they pick up the check and everything because I'm so famous. Everybody knows me. Wherever I go, people recognize me. And then maybe it's like a sports star. Somebody who's a great basketball player, baseball player, all the fame that comes along with that. Or maybe it's a political person, all the fame that comes with that. Or the fame of being someone who invented something really special or something. It's wonderful, and you feel so great. But then something happens where that thing that you invented all of a sudden starts blowing up all by itself. And people are dying as a result of this great invention that you made. Or maybe the sports star, we find out that they've been cheating, or they've been gambling, or they've been having, bad sexual affairs or something like that. So now that fame has turned into disgrace. Maybe it's something that we were doing was very famous. I was portraying myself as this great person when all this time I was just fabricating this, and I really have a really poor self-image of myself. And when things start happening, I start doing bad things, and I wind up in some kind of jail or being prosecuted for stealing or embezzling or something like that. So fame and disgrace is another of these two things, these opposites that make up these 8 worldly concerns. How much time do we spend on these things? When you sit down and think about it, it's amazing. It is a lot of time. And to be able to anticipate these thoughts, that this is what we think about, we then can be very judicious in the way that we think about things, in the way that we make our time, and that we plan ourselves in ways that are very healthy, and we leave time to be able to develop our spirituality. So we go back to this, it says the 8 worldly dharmas are like a painted rainbow. Think you can put your trust in them. So the analogy of a rainbow, is the rainbow really doesn't exist, does it? The rainbow is just an illusion. The rainbow is just a combination of causes and conditions where the moisture is right in the atmosphere, and the light shining from the sun is at the right angle, and it creates this rainbow. But you can just go up and put your hand right through the rainbow. There's nothing there. It's just an illusion. So these 8 worldly dharmas of gain and loss, pleasure and pain, fame and blame, and praise and blame are just illusions. They're just fabrications of our mind that are just taunting us to be able to engage in material things that do not accrue to our spirituality. So you think you can put your trust in them. There's a thing we say, you want all these material things. Do hearses have luggage racks on them? All these things that we put together, when we go and they're taking us to the charnel ground, to the cemetery or wherever, are they taking all your possessions? And then are they fighting over all your possessions? All right, going back to this. And the certainty of death and knowing that nothing remains long quickly accomplish liberation. So we all know that death is certain. We don't know when it's going to happen. We know that nothing's going to remain forever, that we need to accomplish liberation. So what is liberation? Liberation is the attachment or the aversion to all these things, to these emotions. It doesn't mean that we're going to be able to stop these emotions. These emotions are there, part of our who we are, again, as human beings, as part of our intelligence to survive, to be able to protect ourselves. But if we become too attached to them, if we have too much aversion to them, then they become harmful to us. So this is what we're talking about, is the liberation from that harmfulness, from the suffering of that, to think this is the only way. To think that, I got to have these things, I got to do these things, I got to be greedy to be successful and so on. To be able to liberate ourselves from those things is what we're talking about. So the certainty of death, knowing that nothing remains long, quickly accomplish liberation. Permanence makes departure certain, like the shadow of the setting sun. So we know that the sun is going to set and another day is going to go. Abandoning laziness and indifference, blaze like fire in fierce diligence. So this means recognizing that we've got to actualize, we've got to make ourselves do these things and so on, that we can't be lazy with developing our intelligence. We can't be lazy with developing our body. We can't be lazy in developing our spirituality, our spiritual heart, our true nature, to be able to remove the blockages that allow that which is natural to us, the spirituality is natural to us, to allow it to come out. What blocks it are all those emotions that says that all this egotistical stuff is important. But when we can release that stuff, we liberate our stuff, and now our natural true self comes through, that is loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So that's what we want to come through. So we do this by overcoming laziness and indifference, that ambivalence, that we don't care. We should blaze like fire and fierce diligence with our spirituality, with our studies. This life is impermanent, like clouds in the autumn sky. So the autumn sky, we're getting into that time of the year where we get these beautiful blue skies and these beautiful white billowy clouds that are just moving around, but they're all temporary. It's all impermanent. It's all moving. They're going to change to rain clouds. They're going to, the clouds are going to go away, but it's going to be nighttime. We're not going to be able to see it. Birth and death migrators are the same as actors in a play or a dance. So birth and death migrators. So we've had many lifetimes. We've had many deaths. So we're going through this cycle of samsara, this circle of samsara, these cycles of birth and death. So we say this is like the cycle of migrators going through this. Sometimes we're this life, sometimes we're that life. Maybe not so literally, but human beings, all beings are going, sentient beings are going through this. So we need to be able to recognize this migration of birth and death that we go through. And it's like actors in a play or a dance or a performance. So think of that. Have you ever met people that, I know this person, but I've never met this person before, but I know this person. I know what they represent. I know what they're going to say before they even say it, because I know somebody like that. I've experienced this person, or I'm doing it myself. And somebody says, oh, it's like we're such good friends. We know each other for so long, but we just met each other, So the actors change, but the act remains the same. The play is the same. This is a play of being a human being. And the play continues on and on, cycle through cycle through cycle. The names change, the faces change, but the roles stay the same. So it's an interesting observation when you land on that and you contemplate that. So when you dance, when you dance, it's an interesting thing. As an artist, you have a clean piece of paper or a canvas or whatever, and you sit there and you think about, oh, I'm going to make this line, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and everything, and then you say, oh, I made a mistake, oh, I'll paint over it, something like that. In a dance, you learn a routine, a dance routine. And every movement of your hands, every movement of your feet, your legs, and your body and everything, all are choreographed to do this exact thing. And you do it perfectly every single time. And you're part of a dance troupe, and everybody's doing it in unison, or you're complimenting each other and so on. And it's a beautiful dance. But then you make a mistake and you lose your balance. And now all of a sudden, the dance kind of seems to fall apart. But a wise person will say, oh, I just created a new dance move. Let me incorporate that into the routine. And now I have a new dance. The artist, he's able to paint over it. And he says, oh, I'll include that mistake I just made. I'll include that into the artwork that I'm going to do. So it's a matter of being able to integrate the changes that happen into your life into new things, exciting things that can happen into your life, not thinking of it as the end of your life or the termination of that which you thought was the right thing to do. So birth and death migrators are the same as actors in a play or a dance, people that come and go and are doing these acts and so on. The life of beings is like lightning in the sky, like water falling from a steep mountain cliff it departs quickly, quickly. So how old is the universe? How old is all this stuff, all this physical stuff that we're so enamored with? We're sending up billions of dollars of telescopes to figure out that it's older than we thought it was. Billions and billions and billions of life of years, But how long has human beings been around? A million years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years? I don't know. It depends who you talk to. How long is your life? Your life is it going to be 50 years? Is it going to be 60 years, 80 years, 100 years, maybe 125? But in terms of the universe, it's nothing. It's not even a finger snap. It's not even a blink of your eye. So the point here is that this life goes by so quickly. We need to be able to understand impermanence and not be fear impermanence. We have to understand impermanence, and we have to be gracious and be able to have gratitude for this life that we do have and use it for its highest purpose. So like water falling from a steep mountain cliff, it departs quickly, quickly. So when that water falls, it's going down the waterfalls. How long does it take to get to the bottom? It's hardly, you can hardly count it. So the nature of all phenomena is impermanent. So all this phenomenal nature, our bodies, our life, all this around us is all phenomenal, is all impermanent. It's all going to change. Death is a certainty to all who are born. Death can descend anytime, like a drop of morning dew on a blade of grass. Quick, it is time to make effort for the essence of the Dharma. So that's what we need to do. Make effort for the essence of the Dharma, the spirituality, this third component of our lives, our physical body, intellectual body, spiritual body, to complete us as a human being. So now we contemplate this impermanence. So I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes. I'll put this screen up so you can look at this again. And contemplate impermanence. The 8 worldly dharmas: gain and loss, pleasure and pain, fame and disgrace, pleasure and pain, pleasure and blame, praise and blame, excuse me. Okay. Does anybody need to take a short break? You want to stand up and stretch, get a drink of water or something? You can take a couple minutes. We're not going to be able to finish this all tonight, but this is fundamental teaching. So we're going to cover it as thoroughly as we can. So it's going to have to spill over into our next meeting. Anybody have any questions, comments about this? And part of what we're trying to establish is a routine and setting aside time in your day, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, when you come home from work or school, whatever works for you. But to be able to, start off slowly, maybe 15 minutes, and then let it grow by itself. The time that you are worth putting into this, because the more that you do it, the more you see the benefit to this, and the more that you want to do it. So the way you manage your time changes. You say, oh, I think I can find another 15 minutes. I can get up 15 minutes earlier, whatever it takes. And then that grows into another 15 minutes, and maybe to an hour, and so on. And that's when you see the changes, you see the integration of the Dharma coming into your life, because this brings you great comfort, great satisfaction, great wisdom, great skillful means, and you like yourself a whole lot better. And you begin to tolerate other beings much better. Those beings that you would have a short fuse with, that might make you angry or might disappoint you. You have tolerance for them now. Doesn't mean it's perfect tolerance, but we work on that. The perfection comes later on. Okay, so now we go to the next part, which is the suffering of samsara. Why do we turn to the Dharma to understand the suffering of samsara? Samsara, we've said, is the ocean of suffering. The analogy we've used is that that we're all in this body of water, and not being able to be free in the atmosphere above. The atmosphere above would be like what we would call nirvana. Nirvana is the other side of the hand of samsara. They're both the same in terms of our nature. It's our true nature to be, as human beings, to be in this duality, in this dualistic nature, samsara and nirvana. But it becomes a choice when we recognize what the causes and conditions that have manifested samsara and that manifest nirvana. We begin to make choices to either keep ourselves in samsara or to liberate ourselves in nirvana. Now, both of these are temporary. And what we're trying to do is to stabilize that, so that we as human beings become perfect human beings. We become bodhisattvas. We become holy enlightened beings, where now we can control our mind. So we're controlling the emotions that would press us down into the ocean of suffering, into samsara, and that allow us to transcend those causes and conditions of samsara into the causes and conditions of nirvana, and to be able to stabilize that. And then to be a happy, tolerant person who's joyous, who's fun to be with, and is enjoying everything and everywhere, seeing everybody is the same. So it's a choice that we make. So understanding the suffering of samsara now is part of what we need to do. So we go to this prayer. The suffering of samsara. Consider the suffering of beings in the 6 realms of samsara. Doing so, great fear and dread arise in the heart. In the 3 lower realms, and even in the 3 higher ones, there is not an instant of absolute happiness. I will avoid the root cause of my samsaric existence and practice the excellent path of peace to enlightenment. So consider the suffering of beings in the 6 realms of samsara. Doing so, great fear and dread arise in the heart. So you remember a few weeks ago, we talked about the wheel of existence. We talked about the 6 human realms. This is what this is referring to. The suffering of those beings that are in those 6 realms, the Deva realm, the hungry ghost realm, the hell realms, etc., that we talked about. And in doing that, as we think about that, great fear and dread may arise in our hearts, thinking about not only ourselves in those situations, but also other sentient beings. Maybe it's our family, our mothers or fathers, our brothers and sisters, our friends, other beings that we don't know, that we have fear and dread for them. Why are they subjecting themselves? Why do they keep on doing this over and over again to be in these realms of samsara, the suffering of samsara? So consider the suffering of beings in the 6 realms of samsara. Doing so, great fear and dread arise in the heart. It's in the heart. You know, sometimes when you get that pang in your heart when you're thinking about your loved ones who are suffering. That's what we're talking about. Maybe it's you when you think about, oh, I might die today, or I'm going to die one day. How am I going to deal with that? What's my fear going to be like? Is that pang you get in your heart when that comes? The second prayer says, in the 3 lower realms, the animal realm, the hungry ghost realm, and the hell realms, and even in the 3 higher ones, the human realm, the anti-God or the demigod realm, the Titan realm, and the Deva realm, the God realm. Those are the 3 higher realms. Even in those realms, none of them do they have an instant of absolute happiness. Now, they will have temporary happiness. They will be satisfied in some place and time, you know, and be temporarily satisfied with that and then want more from it and so on. But to be absolutely happy does not happen in the human life, in the human realm, in the human body, in the human mind, and so on. So there's not an instant of absolute happiness. I will avoid the root cause of my samsaric existence. So many people want to know what it is that got them to where they are. Were they in the hell realm before? Were they in the hungry ghost realm before? Were they in the demigod realm before? Were they in the God realm before, etc.? What is it that caused them to be where they are now? We don't know. It's really impossible for most all of us to be able to know that. There might be some who say they can know that, but for most of us, we don't know. But it doesn't make a difference. At this point, it doesn't make a difference because this is where we are now. This is what we have to deal with now. How we got here is not near as important as the fact that we're here now. And now the question becomes, what are we going to do now? Are we planning for the future? What's the future going to be like? What do we want to have happen in the future? If there were circumstances, causes and conditions that caused us to have this particular life, then what are the causes and conditions for us to have the next life? And what do we want that life to be? Do we want it to be a very continuance of this life that we have right now? Do we want it to be worse than this life now? Do we want it to be better than this life now? Well, that's all determined by what we do now, what we think about now, how we act right now, that we have responsibility for what happens, not just in 5 minutes from now, but tomorrow and next week and next lifetime, et cetera, by what we do. So I will avoid the root cause of my samsaric existence and practice the excellent path of peace to enlightenment. So if we are peaceful, if we say that what I'm going to do in this life is peace, peace for myself and peace for everyone around me and peace for anything that I can influence, is a step towards that liberation of enlightenment. That peacefulness that we take with us, that quietude that we take with us, that tolerance that we create for ourselves and for those around us and so on, that I can be responsible for. So the suffering of samsara is a result of our responsibility, that which we gave up responsibility or that we seized the responsibility for. And that what that responsibility, was it a virtuous responsibility? Was it a non-virtuous responsibility? So we need to recognize all these things. So in order to do that, we go a little step further. Let me see here. Oh dear, I don't have it in this slide. Okay, well then, sorry. All right, so I will tell you this. So there's, to be a human being, we talk about that there's 3 levels of suffering. The first level of suffering is called the suffering of suffering. And that's the suffering that we're all familiar with. We talk about in our prayers, the suffering of birth, the suffering of injury or sickness, the suffering of old age, and the suffering of death. So those are the 4 sufferings of all sentient beings, of which human beings are part of. Human beings have 4 more sufferings that are uniquely human beings. So there's the suffering of not getting what you want. If I have a desire that I want to have that car, I have a desire that I want to have that job, I have a desire that I want to have that house, I want to have that relationship, I'm not getting it. And that suffering is just working on me, and it develops in so many different ways and manifests in so many different ways. And I begin to become corrupted, and I begin to cheat and do things in order to be able to get those things that I really want and so on. So it becomes very, very harmful to me. So that suffering of not getting what I want is very, very powerful, and only a human being would have that. An animal doesn't have that. An insect doesn't have that, but a human being has that. Then the suffering of getting what you want and now having to protect it. Now I get it. Now I got to protect it. I got to make sure I got the garage for my new car. I got to make sure that I keep the proper gas in there. I got to make sure that I got the insurance for it. I got to make sure that I take care of getting the maintenance done properly and all these different things. And I don't want it to be hit. So when I go to the supermarket, I park it all the way far away from the entrance of the supermarket as I possibly can. So a shopping cart doesn't get shoved into the side of my car. But then I come out and lo and behold, somebody has dinged my car. There's a cart there, or some maniac was driving crazy and dinged up my car or something like that. Now, that which I wanted to have so much, now I've had to protect it, and now I didn't do a very good job with that. So maybe it's my love relationship, it's leaking away, I'm losing my love. Maybe it's my respect in the family, all these different things. That which I wanted to have, now I have to protect it all the time. And I have to got to buy the insurance. I got to mind what I say. I can't go and insult my friends, otherwise they'll leave me. Although I'm thinking I would love to insult my friends. But so we spend so much time spending that. So animals don't have that problem. Birds don't have that problem. Spiders don't have that problem. Human beings have that problem. The next one is being with those that you don't like. Have you ever been in a situation where you're very uncomfortable, where you don't like being with the people you are? Maybe it's a family gathering and you just don't like your family. Maybe it's a cocktail party and you don't know anybody there and you got invited somehow, but you don't fit in. You don't want to be there, but you have an obligation to be there. Maybe it was something that your boss wanted you to come to or something like that. And you might have to be there for a couple, 3 hours, but those couple, 3 hours seemed like an eternity because you're with these people that you don't like. Maybe it's you have to join the military or something. That's my story. I got into the military. I hated every second of it, and it drove me crazy. Some people love it, but I found that I learned some things from it. But when I was going through it, it was terrible. And every moment seemed like forever to me. So it's being with those that you don't want to be with, that you don't love, that you don't care for, being in a situation that you can't control, that you don't like, you feel feeble, and so on like that. So animals don't have that, and insects don't have that. It's a uniquely human problem. But then not being with the ones you love is the next one, that you're somewhere and you want to be with your sweetheart, you want to be with your mother and father, you want to be with your friends, but you're halfway around the world, you've been sent on a mission to go do something with your work or school or something like that, and you're just homesick. You just want to be with the ones that you love, and you can't be with the ones that you love. So again, that's a uniquely human suffering that we have. So those 4 sufferings are uniquely human. So all that together, those 8 sufferings all together are what we call the suffering of suffering, what it is to just be a human being in an ordinary sense. The next suffering is called the suffering of change. And we don't like to change. We like things to be just the way they are. I want to know where my bed is. I want to know where my clothing is. I want to know where my car is. I want to know where my family is. I want to know all these things. And I don't want them to change without me being part of it. I don't want to wake up and find out that my car is not where it was. Or I don't want to find out that my family has all gone away, moved away, or something like that. I don't want to come home at night and find out that somebody's broken into my home and stolen all my possessions or something like that. I don't want to have any change. I don't like things in my work where I get things and I walk in and my desk isn't there anymore. And the boss says, oh, by the way, I moved your desk over here and I changed your job, by the way. Your description's different now. And we don't like that. So that's one of the human sufferings, the suffering of change. We don't like to have that. So there's great suffering from change. And it doesn't have to be the change of impermanence, the change of death. It can just be the change of expectations of where things you thought were going to be are no longer where they are or where they were. The next change is a higher change, or rather the next suffering is a higher suffering, a suffering of understanding. We say is a suffering of the pervading suffering of composite phenomena. So that's a lot. Pervading suffering of composite phenomena. What does that mean? This is something that when you have achieved a particular level of awareness, a particular level of cognizance, a particular level of liberation, not total liberation, but some liberation. And you begin to recognize the suffering that has gone into having to make this table. You begin to recognize that this table was a tree. This table was not just a tree, it was a home to some animals. And not only was it a home to some animals, it was actually food for some insects. And when this tree got cut down, those animals lost their home and those insects lost their food. And then whoever it was that was cutting that down had to struggle with an axe or struggle with some kind of a chainsaw or something like that to cut this tree down. And then they had to drag this tree from wherever it was to get it to wherever the sawmill is to be able to cut that tree up, to make it into lumber in order to make this table. Well, to drag that tree, maybe somebody got hurt. Maybe somebody got crushed underneath the tree when it fell. Maybe somebody, the log of the tree rolled over and crushed somebody. Maybe they threw it into the water and let the log go down the water, but somebody fell into the water and drowned in the process. And then they get it to the sawmill, and now they got to prepare the tree for that. And somebody, hurt themselves. They cut themselves with an axe or something while they're doing that. And then it's going through the big saw, and somebody hurt themselves with that. And they're not getting paid a lot of money. These people that do these kinds of things don't get paid very much. So not only are they risking their health and their limbs, but they're also not getting paid much money to be able to compensate them for their time and what it takes to do all this. So there's suffering there. Then they get the wood, they got to stack it up, they got to dry it, they got to get it to a place where they can sell it, and people have to sell it, and maybe it's a bad time of the year, and the guy who bought it didn't buy it at a good price, he's got to sell it for a loss, and so on. And finally it gets to a carpenter, and he's making tables out of it, and he's got to make the tables, and he's working hard for that, and so on, in a sweatshop in India or Indonesia or someplace like that. And then they give it to an 8-year-old kid who's now got to paint this table with lead paint, and he's getting sick from the lead paint. We take all this for granted. We don't look at a table and think about that. But an enlightened person, someone who has realized some things about life and realized and looks at things critically and thinks about all the compounded nature of what everything is, they recognize this. And they're hurt by this. The suffering that went into making that table, they're feeling that hurt. They're feeling that suffering themselves. And that's what we're talking about. That's the all-pervading suffering of compounded nature, of seeing how all this stuff comes together and recognizing the suffering of what it is to create these conditions and to maintain these conditions of suffering. Look at what's going on now with the atmospheric changes that are going on. And the suffering that's causing. 50 years ago, people were completely ignorant of that. But then we went through this, we've been going through this phase of oh, here's this inconvenient truth. And only a few people believe that. And now more and more people are believing it and seeing the results of it and being threatened, their lives and their livelihoods and their homes being threatened by all this. So the reality of that is really coming to bear. So this is the all-pervading suffering of compounded nature, compounded, composite, compounded phenomena, all this stuff, seeing all that, seeing that this world is, it has pleasure in it. It has happiness in it, but it also has a great deal of suffering in it, and maybe more suffering than it has happiness. We may see some opportunities to have happiness, but we got to really hold them. And by holding them, we become attached to them. So we develop the desire attachment. And then we have aversion, we have hatred to anybody who's trying to pull it away from us. So that creates more suffering. So we see all these dynamics of this. And this is why we say that this is all part of the contemplation of the suffering of samsara, to think about this, to understand who we are as human beings, how we got here, or why it is that we're here, and what it is that we're doing with this now. So now we come to the contemplation of the suffering of samsara. So I'll put this up on the screen for a moment, and we'll have a short contemplation on this. I know you got to make yourself contemplate. Your mind's wandering. Bring it back. Take it one step at a time. Look at that, what's on the screen. Process each sentence. Break down each sentence into each phrase and words and the meaning behind it. You got to make yourself contemplate. Okay, thank you. We're going to stop here for tonight. The next one is karma, cause, and result. We'll talk about that next time. We'll have a short review of what we went over tonight next time. But this is not intended to make you feel bad. This is not intended to make you feel miserable and cause you suffering, but it's there to help us to understand who we are and to recognize that which we take for granted so that we can transcend and find our loving kindness, find our compassion, find our joy, and find our equanimity, our sense of balance, our sense of sameness in all of this. That's where the true happiness is. That's what we would all like. That's where the freedom is. That's what we're trying to get to. And I think that's why we're all here, to be able to attain that. So the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma are like the foundation of the meditation, of the practice, to be able to build to that point of being able to do that transcendent meditation. Any questions or comments?
Lance, you mentioned how this is not supposed to make us feel bad.
Yes.
And in my opinion, this makes me feel amazing. I mean, I get this, and every moment of pleasure in our lives, there's always something we're regretting or fearing, in my experience. And that's the samsara that you're describing. So very, very powerful.
Very good. Thank you for recognizing that and,
Yeah.
and verbalizing that, saying that. Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, then I'm going to recite our dedication prayer. And I had promised that we were going to describe more of the dedication prayer, but we'll do that next time when we have a little bit more time. I don't want to go too late tonight. So we do the dedication prayer on page 21 and 22. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root, and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, yogins, yoginis, and dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and the innate word of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Sravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. So we just reviewed some of those names there. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Maras, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta. And through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain a supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you. And I think I left out, I will not die with negative thoughts. I didn't say that.
Thank you. Thank you, Lance.
Thank
you,
you,
everybody.
Carla. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Lance.
You're welcome. Thank you, Gary. Thank you guys for being with us so many times going around this spiral. And thank you for Brendan and for Viviana for being here the first time. And Zara, who is that? Is that a family member?
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, this is Yassine. This is my 7-year-old nephew. He was listening on the peripheral and taking in. He goes, is this your teacher? He goes, is this your mentor? He just asked me that.
Well, very
Very-
good.
Very sweet. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for bringing your nephew with you. You always are welcome to join us.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Cheery bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
See you.